Today's podcast is sponsored by Genesis, the most comprehensive and complete education for pool professionals. The Genesis Career Pathway for pool builders and design professionals puts your team on the right track to become masters of their trade.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast. Today I'm chatting with my friend and mentor in the pool industry, Premier Franchise Management CEO Paul Porter of the Premier Pools and Spas and Premier Pool Service franchises. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today on the show, Paul.
Thank you, Joe. And it's I've been following your success, and I got to tell you, although I was just a very small part of this, what you're doing for the industry, educating folks out there, bringing technology to them, elevating the experience for the customer is remarkable. So a big part of me is proud to say that I've been associated with you, and you brought a lot of technology and help to our organization, and you're bringing it to the entire industry. And I applaud you for that.
Well, you taught me an awful lot in the time frame I was with Premier. I mean, that daily interaction that I had with helping you guys build up that organization put me on the path that I'm on today. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. So thank you. A lot of times, there's great stories that talk about starting an organization from scratch, and talk about the struggles and humble origins of building a successful enterprise. And, Paul, your story is a unique one and the type of American success story that I think a lot of people would be interested in learning more about. And I'm eager to try and get you to share some of that with us today.
I think I relate so much to the pool industry because so many of us have a humble beginning. We don't have the necessary college pedigree, for instance. There is no college that graduates pool builders. We all learn through osmosis, and I was no different. I grew up, with a single mother on welfare. And the only reason I share that is because, when you're just trying to survive in the world, you really have no idea what you're going to do after school. And my ideal of people owning a swimming pool when I was growing up is only rich people own swimming pools. When I had an opportunity back in the mid 80s to go to work for a pool builder, I thought I just hit the jackpot, the glamour job, the one that I get to go out and I work for rich people. It was so funny. I did this and I was pretty successful. I was like so excited. My first experience in selling was selling vacuum cleaners door to door. And, you get 10 doors slammed in your face before you get one person let you in the house. This is the first opportunity of selling anything where somebody actually said, you know what, I've been dreaming, I've been thinking about a swimming pool for years and years, and I'd like to have you come in my home and show me what I can do to create and fulfill my dream. So it was something that I thought, wow, not only do I get to go into a home and help people fulfill their dream, but these people inviting me into their home, all I have to do is convince them that I'm the right person to shepherd their dream, that I have a better value proposition and I could fulfill, their desire to create memories in their backyard. So it was really exciting for me when I first started in the swimming pool industry. What I quickly found out after about 6 months, my first experience was working for another pool builder. After about 6 months working in the swimming pool industry, I remember coming home to my wife and saying, building a swimming pool for rich people has got to be the hardest thing in the world. Everybody is so unreasonable. I kind of find out later, they weren't really unreasonable. It's just that we, as a company at that particular point in time, and probably as an industry, we oversold and underdelivered. When we had the responsibility to go out there and fulfill these people's dreams, when they started seeing things, or at least they perceived things to go wrong, they started to get scared. And when people get scared, they usually lash back out. And that's kind of what we experienced early on in the process. Before I started Premier Pools, I worked for a pool company. I was doing really well. He asked me to go and open up another office for him in another area. I went into the San Francisco Bay Area. I started building pools. In 9 months, I became the largest pool builder in that marketplace. I remember and the first time ever, I started building my own pool. I remember that distinctly because my kids were all young at the time, but I was thinking about having a 4th of July party. And I can relate so much to how the customers feel about having a 4th of July party. I started building my own pool out there, and I got a call on July 3rd from my boss. And he says, it was in Sacramento. He says, I need you to come back to Sacramento. My business is in trouble. At the time, I'd been in Antioch, California for 9 months. We were, had a home, building a pool. I was doing real well, but he had held the license. So I drove back to Sacramento. I talked to Ed at the time and found out that he said, I'm done. I'm either going to close down the business or you can come in and try to pull this thing out. So we put our house up for sale, Joe. And before we had an opportunity to utilize it for the 4th of July party, I ended up going back to Sacramento, calling Debbie up and says, we're going to have to move back to Sacramento. Let's put our house up for sale.
Wow.
We, for the first time in my life, because again, I told you I have humble backgrounds, we sold our house and got $70,000 for equity. That's more money than I've ever had in my life. And maybe some of the folks can relate to it out there. I went back and, my boss at the time says, Paul, you have been so doggone loyal to this company that I'd like to sell you some stock in the company. Matter of fact, I'd like to sell you 10% of the stock. And I'm sure you know as well as everybody else what the next story I'm going to say. He sold me the 10% of the stock for the $70,000 of my life savings at the time. So, but I thought, here's this kid from the wrong side of the track, raised by a single mother. It gets an opportunity to do something he loves and gets an ownership stake in the business. So I went ahead and did it. We started, digging. His company at the time was about $250,000 in debt. And we started paying back the debt. Bought a house in Folsom and started building pools in my neighborhood. Actually had about 18 pools going in my neighborhood at the time. And I showed up to work. And at this time, Keith Harbeck, which is, my original partner at Premier Pools, had joined us and showed up to work one September afternoon. And there's a padlock on the front door. Ed was gone. Wow. He left in the middle of the night. He left with my life savings. And what we come to find out that the company was even more in debt because he had IRS liens that weren't satisfied and the business was out of business. We really didn't know what to do at that time. I had 23 pools in construction. I think the company had around 50 or 60 pools total. The people that I thought were rich at that time, Joe, I realized they weren't rich. They were just people, hardworking people. All their life, they dreamed about pool ownership. And I saw the anguish on their face when I said, the company that I'm working with right now is going out of business. And I saw their dreams being dashed. And we decided at that point in time, we weren't sure what we were going to do on a go-forward basis, but we had to figure out some way, somehow, to make sure we can make those customers as whole as we possibly could. So Keith and I, we went out and we told everybody we would schedule with the subcontractors. They could pay them direct. Anything that we could do, put up benches, set tiles, set equipment sets, clean the pools, anything that we were capable of doing, we would do for no charge at all to try to finish these folks' pool. Unfortunately, we couldn't make everybody whole, but we did get every single pool finished. And it took us 10 weeks to do that. I remember thinking, as people were pounding on my door at 10 o'clock at night, yelling through the door, we're going to kill you. And then seeing how can I be, at the time I was only 27 years old, how could I be so stupid to trust somebody that much? My wife was at the time 9 months pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant with our third child. We'd had our cars repossessed out of our driveway. My wife is riding down to the grocery store on a bicycle with my two boys at the time. She was pregnant with our third, following them on a bicycle. Keith came up to me one day and says, Paul, what are you going to do now that we finished all these pools? And I says, you know what? I cannot leave on this note. We've got to do this right. First of all, if you have the responsibility of having employees, first of all, you've got to use the fact that I would have given this guy anything. I would have worked 16 hours a day because I believed and I trusted him. And I said, when we have employees, we have to at least tell them the truth. We can't dictate what's going to always happen in the marketplace. We can't dictate what the economy is going to do, but we can always be truthful with them. I said, that's the first thing. I don't know if we're ever going to have employees again, but that's one thing I learned. And the second thing I learned is these customers, they believe and they rely on you to help build their dream and create memories in their backyard. And what we have to do is we also have to tell them the truth and continue to focus on underselling and over delivering. Well, that was a real simple concept. I actually borrowed $50 at the time from my mom. You say, well, why'd you borrow $50? My wife drew a picture of a pool on a flyer And at the time we went to Kinko's, and I think we got 5,000 flyers for $50 at the time. So Keith and I and our family started passing out flyers door to door. And we did this for 1 week, and then we did it for 2 weeks. We're going out every day, 8 hours a day. The third week, we finally show up, Joe, and we come home, and on our answering machine is that clicking red light. I was so excited because I knew that the only person who would call on that is somebody that wanted some information about swimming pool. Picked up the phone, and the guy says, "Yeah, I live in Elk Grove, and I got a flyer on my door, and I'm looking for an estimate." I was excited, but I was also afraid. I was afraid because I said, what is the story I'm going to tell him? That I worked for a company that ended up going out of business and damaged a lot of customers. I showed up and went through the presentation. He liked what he saw. And then he asked me, do you have any referrals that I could talk to? And I said, no, not probably anybody you'd like to hear what they have to say. Do you have any pools you can show me? I said, probably not too many people want me in their backyard. I said, but here's the deal. This is my story. Nobody needs to work for you. Nobody understands what you're looking for more than I do. If you want to pay the subcontractors directly, this is the price that you pay. This is how much money I'm going to make on this. And if I do a good job, you can just pay me. He looked at me and says, you know what? I don't know. Maybe I caught him during happy hours. Had a good time. It was the afternoon. He said, there's something about you that I believe and I trust. I'm going to go ahead and give you the job. I think way back then in 1988, the pool was around $15,000. People today are around, how did you do a pool for $15,000? It was a simple pool, but that pool was everything to this guy. To say that we exceeded expectations would probably be the underestimation of my life, because we knew what time the guy had breakfast. We knew what he had for breakfast. We knew what time he came home. We knew what time happy hour started at home. That was our whole world. Every day we swept down the driveways. Every day we did everything we possibly could to make sure that he was pleased with what we had. And we said we'd build a pool in 6 weeks, and we finished the pool in 3 weeks, and he was delighted. Fortunately, the next door neighbor at the time saw what we did next door and was excited and let us do that. Built her pool. And the third pool we built was a guy named Gary Greenbaum. He's a swim coach for a local high school. And he sent us 13 jobs. Joe, that was 35 years ago. And that was about 100,000 pools ago.
Incredible.
We have now grown that little company to the world's largest pool company, building about 10,000 pools a year. We currently have 175 locations, and we're associated with about 2,500 people nationwide with our organization. The one thing I want to instill on our people, Joe, is I wouldn't say that I have any extraordinary skills, probably not extraordinary education, and not extraordinary intelligence, but I'll tell you, you can do anything with heart and belief and a desire. That if you do things with honesty and integrity, you make your team, and your team understands that culture is everything in an organization. And that's the thing from day one. I tell every single person our story and how I felt, and our responsibility not only to each other, but the responsibility to our customers. What I wasn't aware of at that point in time, I had no grandiose aspirations of being the world's largest. I just wanted to make sure that we met those expectations of that first customer. And so we started building in Sacramento. At the time, we were the smallest builder out of 100 builders. We had 3 large builders that were doing about 300 pools a year. We ended up becoming the largest pool builder in the world. By 2003, we were doing over $100 million a year in business and 1,000 pools a year in Sacramento. About 700 or 800 more pools a year than anybody ever built in that marketplace before. We understood the power of the customer. If we did a great job, we validated their decision to do business with us and made them ambassadors, they would grow our business. We found that to be the case. We had a successful business, had about 500 employees. Like I said, we're building 1,000 pools a day. Then us, like many people in the swimming pool business, the Great Recession hit us in 2000, started in 2006, second half, and went through 2010. And I remember everything we had to do, our big company that we had all these employees, we had to start letting go of family members. We had about 175 trucks. We started to have to renegotiate leases on our buildings, and we did everything we could. Remember, we didn't go without a salary for 2 years through that 2008 and 9 period of time. We just borrowed against our houses and did whatever we could to hang on and to hold on to every employee we possibly could. And then things started in 2010. tend to recover a little bit. Keith and I kind of looked at each other and said, we made this, we want to finish our career. But I saw so much plight in that 2007-10, and we lost 70% of our industry during that period of time. And so many people that had put their entire life in the industry, Joe, had to leave because they had to rely only on themselves. And there were so many things that I had learned, not only from the previous 20 plus years I had in the swimming pool industry, but learned how to survive through this industry and making sure that we had visibility of our numbers and to have efficient business things. I realized that the industry had to morph into businesses like that were outside of our industry, that everything was consolidated anymore. Mom and pops were going away, and you had to consolidate just because you had to create scalability.
Right.
And so whether it be on brochures or at the time, as you well know, because you were instrumentally involved, we had to go into digital marketing, and that's another realm that we didn't know. And so many people out in the industry didn't know about digital marketing, but that was another thing that you had to do on scale, and it was very expensive, and you had to have a certain amount of know-how. I just thought that this was a great opportunity to start consolidating the industry, to help out existing pool builders as well, and to elevate the experience for the customer. And if we elevate the experience for the customer, then we would grow the industry. So I didn't know anything about franchising at the time, didn't really know anything about licensing. It was just this idea. So I literally found out, did some research, found out that franchising would be too expensive at the time. So in 2010, I started licensing, and I just started knocking on doors, calling people and telling them what we're doing and telling them how consolidation. And if we can get together and go shoulder to shoulder and have a commitment to creating a great experience for the customer, that the consumer was ready. People were wondering, what's a license and why do I need you? But there was a lot of receptiveness also because so many people have been damaged through the process. So we licensed her about 3 years, and I kind of realized that if I was going to control the brand, that we had to have stricter regulations, we had to have stricter operations, and we had to have more consistency through the process. And I realized to do that, I couldn't license anymore. So I started the arduous process of franchising, and it took about 2 years for operations manuals and all the registrations and all the state registrations and the lawyers' fees and all this. In 2014, we started to roll out our franchise model. And again, it's kind of a model that most people in the industry weren't very familiar with the franchise model or why they needed it. We started to bring on franchises. The franchises saw a tremendous amount of success. So many of our guys that had been in business for a lot of times, I always tell the Jeff Boyer story. You know, his family was in the business in Temecula for 30 years, was doing $500,000 a year in business. You know, today Jeff's doing $30 million a year in business with us because he's adopted not only the philosophy of our organization, but the contributions he brought to it. And as a collaborative group, you know, figured out ways to scale. We knew how to scale because we started in our garage and grew to a $100 million business. And all the way along the way, we taught builders how to scale their businesses, how to recruit people, how to bring salespeople on, what's the proper time to bring schedulers and construction people, and then, you know, how to fix your costs so that you can afford those things. That knowledge helped us grow these people. And the more that the industry saw that we were growing, the more acceptance we had in the marketplace. So we grew that and started for the first probably 7 years or so. We grew to about 45 or 50 offices. About 4 years ago, we started to say, you know, we really need to go out into the marketplace and find business people. And so we did the heavy lifting of saying, it's more important that we look for people with character. And then once we find the character, we look for their business acumen. Once we find out their business acumen, then we teach them what we know. We can teach them the pool business. We can't teach people character and business acumen.
Absolutely.
So we started going out and recruiting police officers from Detroit, and we brought in firemen, and we brought in insurance salesmen. We brought in registered nurses and radio station owners. And what we found out is because these folks had a different way of bringing business, they brought a lot of their knowledge into our business as well as adopting what we did, and our business started to grow. So from 2016 to 2017, we added about 70 new franchises. And in 2021, we started to we opened up another division called Pinnacle Pools, and that was going to be a part of our franchise business that just focused on fiberglass. We saw the adoption and acceptance of fiberglass, so we started to do that. We brought on, in the last 2 years, we brought on 22 Pinnacle franchises. And then 2 years ago, I started to make sure that we wanted to complete the experience with the customer. We spent all this time creating a relationship with the customer. What we wanted to do is support what we sold. So we started a pool service division. And the pool service division, we wanted it to be dynamic, not just somebody that took care of the maintenance of the pool. We wanted somebody to be in their backyard protecting that experience. And then we wanted to be associated with the builder, although being independent, so they could do things like safety fences and leak detection and gunite seals and just different things that they were going outside the marketplace to increase the revenue model on the service center. So we brought those in. Today we've been doing that for 2 years, and we have 35 Pinnacle and Premier pool service companies, and we're growing those pretty quickly. So all in all, Joe, we have 175 currently. We developed a sophisticated learning center in Dallas for our service, and we're building out using our Sacramento facility as kind of state-of-the-art training center to bring new franchising on through the onboarding process so that we get better education. Recently we've gone out into the market and brought in, Fortune 500 CFO, and we brought on procurement people, started the GPO process, purchasing organization, to provide, clarity and better purchasing and more visibility over our franchises, so that the more visibility we found out we have, the more coaching that we can do, and we can help them be successful. So there's been a lot of moving and evolving pieces in our company. We now feel that we're positioned. We moved our headquarters to Nashville. We have 40 people just doing accounting and in the Nashville office. And we found out that we're successful by specializing in things. We have an on-board videographer that has, worked in Hollywood productions and understands that market. We have reputation management people. We have Facebook experts. We have Google experts. We have people that have gone to school and have a deep understanding of the way and the movement of the market. We have in-house SEO people, and all these people now, because we can afford to do those, because the scalability. We generated $750 million in revenue last year, so we can afford to do these things on a scale and give these guys a better presence. And I'll also offer them things like sophisticated websites and sophisticated brochures and, and continuous onboarding and training cycles to the system. Ultimately, what we're doing, Joe, is we're trying to build a generational business, and we're trying to make sure the brand means something to the consumer. When they look at that brand stands for quality and integrity and value, and something they can trust. It's a work in progress, but we think we're making some progress. And by the fact that we continue to grow and add market share, we think the consumer is accepting us in a large way.
Absolutely. I mean, that switch to the franchise model has been wildly successful for you. That Ray Kroc model is something that has transcended to the pool industry in no way that I've seen other than your organization. Your franchisees are highly profitable and have a dominant and visible presence in some of the largest pool markets in America. And I know a big factor for that growth was getting the brand out. I mean, certainly doing Pool Kings made you and your son, Brian, a really visible presence in millions of households. Having the franchisees participate in some of those builds also help propel their own local brands. I know we covered one of those builds on Pool Magazine. The one you did with our friend Scott Walk down in Georgia was one of my favorites.
Those shows have been great for the pool industry as a whole. I mean, it's that has done what the flippers have done for the home improvement industry. They've given people ideas, it's credibility. They know what's possible out there. And it certainly was for a brand awareness is great. Those shows we were fortunate enough to do 2 seasons of that, 20 episodes. And at the time I said, man, this is a whole heck of a lot of work when I'm trying to run a business. But when you see that they play these things over and over and over, I think the last time I got a report on this, our show had been shown and had been viewed over 22 million times. So and 85 different countries. So there's a lot of brand recognition. I was on a cruise ship the other day, and they had a complete Filipino crew, and the Filipino crew came up to me and they asked if we were the Pool Kings guys. I guess that's a really big show in the Philippines. And so you never know where you're going to get exposure or where you're going to be recognized or how much goodwill it will do. And they still show those shows today. And so we're parlaying that into a new show that we're doing ourselves called Passion for Splashing. And this week, actually, we're releasing our second episode on YouTube. Our first one we put out a few months back, and it's got 250,000 views already. And so we feel like, we're trying to build an audience on that and keep top of mind with consumers. And it's certainly good for people to see visible. They like the process of seeing a pool built, and it's aspirational so people enjoy the shows.
Well, I give you a lot of credit. I mean, doing the show during that time frame, and you're driving all that new business. You also had a few grandkids during that time frame as well. I mean, just so much going
on. Now you're talking. It took me till I was 55 to have my first, but now I have 7, and 7 or 8 and under, and it's certainly the joy of my life. My wife and I have been married for 42 years. We had our kids young. We started our business young. Our kids grew up and they started having kids late. But I'll tell you, each and every day, if you're not building a pool for yourself, building it for your grandkids is even more rewarding, because to see them having fun in it and splashing, creating memories in your backyard, I don't know there's anything better for a grandparent to do than to build a place where they can have their kids in their own backyard.
Well, I give you a lot of credit. You built a tremendous organization that truly enriches so many people's lives, and as a byproduct, produces some of the best pools in America. So hats off. Thank
you. I would like to take a lot of credit, but as you well know, there's so many people now that you're building a business, you rely on the talents and the efforts and the passion of their people. And there's so many talented people. I'm consistently in awe. I think you did a story with Lance Irby a while back, and to see guys like that can design and have the vision that they do. I only wish I had that kind of vision to do things, but I'm so proud to be associated and build an organization where they want to work and to provide the unique and extraordinary products from, we talk simple to sensational, and we're building, today you don't build $30,000 pools, but we build $50,000 and $60,000 pools, up to millions of dollars of pools every year for every customer. And we want to be the type of organization that can build for anybody that wants a swimming pool. It's one of the reasons we in the fiberglass and even doing some vinyl pools. If somebody wants to create a place in their backyard to have a swimming pool and a place that they can join together as a family and create memories, we want to participate in that.
Well, I love seeing these guys committed to expanding their education. I mean, just the guys in your organization are so focused on their own personal growth. Lance Irby's out at all the Genesis education. I see Blake Swanson participating with the Waterscapes University crowd down in Long Beach. And you've got your own internal education events that you do at your own Premier Summit, where you put together workshops and seminars on the latest construction, design, and sales techniques, as well as running a pool business. I mean, that's really what brings to mind when I see a lot of these industry expos that I go to as well.
Yeah, it's important, not only for learning, it's important for culture. Great organizations are built with great cultures, and cultures are when people are united with one process and they think alike, and they're proud of what they're doing. And our culture is the most important thing we have. And so when we get together, whether it be our annual company trip to Mexico or the Caribbean or whatever we do, or if we have our summits, which are quite extraordinary, our Premier University classes, we spend a lot of time bringing in some of the industry experts as well as our own people to do deep dives into every facet. Not just motivation's great, but motivation has a lifespan. We want more meat on the bone, so we have classes for schedulers and supervisors and salespeople, and we have classes for water chemistry. And we do this all in an environment. We celebrate together through this process. And we also want to keep this. Last year, we also did industry trade fair. We had 22 different vendors took up about 12,000 square feet, where they all set up their booths. It was like a mini national convention or trade show. And then each one of those vendors could spend unique time with not only the salespeople, the owners, but the supervisors. Because when we have these summits, we have everybody come, schedulers, supervisors, owners. If they want to bring their wives, they're more than welcome to do that. We want to create a family environment. We want to have an enriching learning environment also, where they can be inspired about the opportunity to not only do well, but how, and then we invite them to contribute to how can we be a better organization next year.
Well, from a revenue standpoint, 750 million collectively, Premier is a monster. I know that every year you single out offices and recognize them for their own individual achievements. Who are your leading markets last year, and what kind of growth has your organization seen over the past few years?
Well, we're growing at about a 40% clip a year right now, Joe. So we were up $250 million in revenue last year.
Wow.
But it's, you would think it would be some of these bigger markets, but it's some of the secondary markets that are so extraordinary, like LaGrange, for instance, that has College Station. He's got College Station and Corpus Christi in his territory. Chip Rayburn last year did $28 million in business. Austin did $40 million in business. Sacramento did $130 million of business last year between Sacramento and Modesto. Just absolutely extraordinary. 1,300 pools. Temecula did 35 million. San Diego did $30 million. We have so many people that achieve the highest level, and they have tenured long-term staffs there, and they continue to grow and create market share and reputation each and every year. Boise, $16 million. We have a lot of offices, and then you have the big offices like Houston and Dallas and all these other offices. We had an office in Mobile, Alabama that did $20 million this year. So some of these you wouldn't think they'd be high up on the list. They do extraordinary things because of the markets are big, but they just consume market share because they rely on their customers to grow their business.
Well, I know you guys have great reward and incentive trips. I mean, back in the early days of the franchise, those company trips were almost like a family reunion. But you guys are growing so fast now. I saw the last company trip, you had to split it into two because your organization is just so large. There was no resort that could accommodate a group your size.
Yeah, that got around, I guess. Yeah, we had made, you have to book these rooms well in advance, and we had booked it for 500 people, thinking that would be enough. Coming out of that, we really didn't know what COVID would do. And as we started getting registrations early this year, we found out that 900 people wanted to go. And we were scrambling. We could have gone like sometimes the vendors will say, well, we've only got this resort. But we wanted, after COVID, to have, everybody an opportunity to go. So we kind of paid up, and we stayed at the same resort, and we booked the same resort 3 weeks later. So everybody got to go to Cabo this last year, the Hard Rock Cafe, and it was an extraordinary experience. But we took 902 trips. So we had to kind of double the process. And I'm glad we did it because, again, it energized people. It brought people together. People say, I come for a business trip. I come back because it is a family reunion. And that's the thing I'm most proud of, is that people believe in what we're doing. And they believe in what we're doing because they're a part of it. They're the people that build the culture in this organization and are committed to going out there and doing something they're proud of. And if I'm proud of one thing, that's the thing I'm most proud of, is the genuine care that these people have for their customers and for each other, and the willingness that they have to help and teach each other. Most of the training happens internally, whether it be on Slack or whether it be, in our training, quarterly training meetings or in our monthly webinars. These guys are always talking and asking each other, what's the best way to go out and, buy a product, build something uniquely? Is there more cost-efficient ways to do that? From my position, it's extraordinarily gratifying to see these people give up their time, and they're generous with their time to help each other.
I look at your map now, and it looks like there's a Premier Pools in almost every state in America.
The 8 states we're in today.
What's your target moving forward, Paul? I mean, how much bigger can you guys get?
We think we have a lot of opportunity. We think that our roadmap leads to about 500 Premier and Pinnacle franchises and unlimited service franchises. We're aspiring to big numbers there, and we want to get a little more traction before I share that. But we think there's opportunity for hundreds and hundreds of service franchises, and there's a need for consolidation on the service franchise that can develop into going from service to obviously remodel, which is still something that's untapped and needs to be consolidated and scalability in that market too.
Well, when we talk about Premier as a whole, the size and scale of your organization gives you guys a unique advantage when it comes to collective buying, and even within the trade itself when it comes to access to trade partners. I mean, people know that they're going to build a lot of pools with Premier, and they're going to sell a lot of equipment with you guys, certainly. I mean, do you feel like this is something that you could extend to places outside of the United States, into maybe countries like Canada, Mexico, or maybe even Australia?
Well, we're going into Canada this year, and we're going in with the new brand. We had to get a brand that Premier was too generic, Canadian trademark law. So we've already been licensed, and we're moving into Canada this year. We've got our sights on Australia and Mexico and a few things, but like I said, we're seeing we have to duplicate the process, and we think we have a real opportunity in fiberglass to go global. And so that's something that we're going to focus on. We do have scalability. We have purchasing power when we buy from manufacturers. We buy into the 70, 80, and $100 million ranges. So obviously we're buying, and we have attractive rebates that we split with our franchises, and we have anything that you can buy, whether it be plumbing or any material that you can buy in bulk, you can get savings. And it doesn't matter how big you are in this organization. All of our franchisees, they buy it the same. So they get the same VIP treatment and the same VIP scale just by being part of the organization.
I've seen the partnership with Latham has really helped you guys leverage access to lower prices on shells and equipment, and the addition of the Hydura to your core offering has positioned you as a leading installer of fiberglass pools virtually overnight. The Premier builders I've spoke with at the shows who are installing the line seem very pleased with it. I mean, are you trying to put the Hydura line in every one of your markets now?
We are. We became in our year of installing fiberglass pools the single biggest builder and installer of fiberglass pools in the world. We did about 1,600 shells this last year, and we wanted differentiation from the Latham brand. So we had Latham start building us a line that we have actually designed ourselves, and that we have unique shapes and styles that we could take to the market. And we're having them constructed different with some different quality features in there. We wanted a different story to tell than the traditional Latham line. Latham builds a great product. We just wanted to be able to put our stamp on it and say that we're building this particular pool for different reasons, and it provides different needs for our customer. Create differentiation, and it also is margin preservation if we can go out there and create the value proposition.
I've seen the brochure material in the Hydura website. It looks like a really strong offering. I mean, basically an eco-friendly smart pool that's virtually maintenance-free and backed by a lifetime warranty, high-end materials. You got the Ultra Wall, Ultra Beam designed for like 100 years of service life. I mean, I played with the world's best pool application. That's great how you could toggle and see all the different options and features available to you on your pool. That type of interactive experience really sets you guys apart. It lets you dream build right there on the site.
Yeah, we built in our existing pool building brochure, we have augmented reality, so that we built an app, and then we can scan over the pictures, and the pictures come to life, whether it be fire or beach balls or the pool covers going back and forth. We did the same thing when we were designing a digital presentation for Hydura. We wanted just to be interactive with the customer, so we could tell a story and they can see the video of not only how it was constructed, but how it's built, tractors going back and forth. They could put different colors of finishes on and different tiles and things like that. So it becomes interactive and different in the marketplace. We just feel like, our consumer is a sophisticated consumer. They want to be dealt with the way that they're used to doing business. And so we have just a really talented team internally that we can write these things, and we can write the code, and we can build the apps, and we can provide our team with top of the line, very intelligent, very sophisticated material to do presentations to increase the value for the customer.
It certainly feels like if I was going to buy a Mercedes or a Lexus, that I'm getting the same kind of interactive experience buying a pool as when I go onto Premier's type of websites. So that's really something that I see that sets you apart. But during 2020, 2021, I mean, we really saw a boom, the likes of which I don't think anyone in the industry had ever seen before. I mean, the words unprecedented demand became like the definitive buzz phrase in the industry for roughly 2 years. What kind of growth did Premier experience during that particular time frame?
Well, our growth was somewhat limited. We, like probably everybody else in America, had more leads than we can possibly run. but we had constraints based on supply chain shortages and cost elevation. You had the prices going up, inflation. We had tons and tons of issues with supply chain challenges, subcontractor shortages. So we grew at 40%. We grew from about 2020, 440 million to about 750 million at the end of 2022. So we grew revenue, but the opportunity, we could have grown over to $1 billion company relatively easily. We were drawing 150,000 leads a year, generating about 1.6 million people a year to our website. So we had a lot of interest, a lot of activity. We didn't have a large enough, we were only 600 salespeople, and we didn't have a large enough sales staff to even accommodate the amount of demand we had. And if we sold them, it was very difficult to get them built with the supply chain shortages and the subcontractor shortages, but we still grew at in excess of 40%.
Well, starting at the beginning of 2022, we began to see a bit of a shift in consumer behaviors. I mean, some of the tailwinds of post-COVID demand were a decrease in the number of pools being sold, particularly last year. I think what we saw, aside from what was happening in the stock market and the industry itself, was, most companies' numbers were down a bit for a couple of quarters. By and large, what we've seen is many builders right now are starting to get back into pool remodeling and renovation. That's usually a good indication that leads for new pool construction have tapered a bit. I mean, as CEO of one of the largest pool organizations in the world, you have visibility, historical data, and your own gut intuition to go off of. What do you think the rest of 2023 looks like moving into the new pool season? And how is Premier best positioned to weather a changing market?
Well, we ended up in actually 2022. I know the industry was down 20+%, and it was a pretty devastating fourth quarter, but we ended up actually with our best year ever. We drew a lot of leads. We're pretty proficient at driving leads. Leads are more expensive this year. What we have found out in the fourth quarter of last year and the first quarter of this year is visits. We're driving, because our SEO is good, we're driving more people to our website, but it's not converting. So we're driving actually about 33% more people to our website, but we're converting at 40% less. So there's still the desire to own a swimming pool, but right now, because of lack of conviction or confidence in the marketplace, they're not converting to a lead, and they're not getting estimates. I think a lot of this has been because they've heard that pools have risen to over $70,000 a pool, but I still believe the desire is out there. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to reach the customer in different ways. Our leads this year are starting to pick up. We're about 9% less than we had last year. We drew 130,000 leads as a company last year. So we're starting to catch up with leads this year. What we found out, the first January revenue was down a little bit. Our sales were actually at last year's January numbers. So we're driving more capacity with more leads. It's just a smaller pool of customers. So our goal is to, even though that the customer base, I predict, will be down 30% in new pools this year, is going to be smaller. How do we reach the existing customers with our story? We feel people are going to be more discerning. They're just not going to buy from somebody that shows up anymore. You're going to have to go out there and create credibility. You're going to have to convince them that you're the right person to do that. And so we're spending a lot of time with sales training, and we're spending a lot of time with lead generation. Lead cost is more this year. The organic leads are down about 45%. You're just generic SEO stuff. So you've got to be creative with the way you advertise, the times you advertise, and what medias you advertise. And we feel that we'll be able to generate enough pools to probably hit last year's numbers. It's very, very difficult because every day everybody has to deal with, what's the Fed going to do? What's interest rates going to do? What's housing going to do? Is it getting more expensive to live? So those are challenges we're going to have to overcome this year. And I just think that we're, as an industry, going to have to do a better job, because the desire to own our product is as great as ever. We just have to convince them this is a good time to do it.
Right. I saw something recently from Rob Carlin with Superior Wellness, and he spoke a little bit about taking your foot off of the accelerator during this time period and how it's difficult to catch up from a marketing perspective once you do that. I mean, anything to say there, Paul?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you've got to market more. You got to spend more. You got to be, this is the time to brand build. This is not the time to pull back. And I know that's the natural inclination, especially when some of my friends out there in the industry went through 2007 and 10. We don't know what we're in for, but to be somebody that there's no consumer awareness of is not going to bode well, especially with all this money coming into the industry. You know, these private equity firms are buying up pool builders, are putting a lot of money into advertising. They're going to go in there and consume market share. And the independents out there, they're going to have to figure out a way to stay in front of the customers so they stay relevant going forward. But I wouldn't say this is the time to take your foot off the accelerator. I would say this is the time to be more visible.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, really, Paul, I thank you so much for spending the time with us to chat today and for being with us on the show. Truly a pleasure having you with us.
Joe, the pleasure is all mine. You're great for the industry. You're one of the hardest working guys I know. But every time I see an issue of your magazine, I see it getting thicker. So I know you're offering more information and you're getting more people to see the great industry we have. And for that, I'd like to thank you, Anne Marianne. You're doing a great job.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Genesis, the most comprehensive and complete education for pool professionals. The Genesis Career Pathway for Pool Builders and Design Professionals puts your team on the right track to become masters of their trade.